Today we'll be looking at one of the most anticipated video game releases in 2021, the long-awaited Tales of Arise.
That is all I desire.
Originally slated for a 2020 release, after several delays, the game finally came out in September of this year for both 8th and 9th generation consoles. Now, a month later, we look at the game and answer that all-important question. Was it worth the wait? The Tales series of JRPGs never got as much Western mainstream attention as the likes of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, or in more recent years, Shin Megami Tensei's Persona series. But the Tales games have garnered a respectable following and slowly proliferating popularity as the quality of the narratives make themselves apparent with each new entry. For the uninitiated, the Tales games are known for their usually frenetic combat systems, in which the usual menu-based systems in traditional JRPGs are eschewed in favor of real-time battles, in which stringing together normal attacks and special skills, or arts, to exploit enemy weaknesses is the key to victory. Standing out from the usual types of battle system in the formative years of JRPGs, this battle system allowed the Tales games to generally be more exciting to people who preferred a little pace in their battles. The Tales games are also generally well known for extensive character development, with party dynamics and interactions playing out in skits, which are usually little more than talking head segments, which nonetheless help flesh out which each character is thinking or feeling at any particular point in the story, while also fleshing out the bonds between characters. Finally, one thing the Tales games do really well is deconstructing the fantasy narratives and tropes they employ, usually allowing a fresh take on what seems to be a tried and true story. While some games can, at best, usually only be described as average, looking at you, Tales of Zestiria, with a 25-year pedigree, 17 mainline titles, and about 24 spin-off games and anime tie-ins, the Tales series is definitely doing something right. And this is true of the latest game in the series, the long-awaited and much-delayed Tales of Arise. The inhabitants of the planet Dana have always revered Renna, the planet in the sky, as a land of the righteous and divine. Or at least they did, until the advanced Renans came down from it to conquer Dana, and did so easily. Renna has ruled over Dana for the past 300 years, pillaging the world beneath of its resources and its people of their dignity and freedom. The game focuses on Elfin, a Danan man who has no memories and has lost the ability to feel pain, and Shion, a Renan noblewoman whose curse of thorns brings pain to whoever touches her, and who is pursued by her fellow Renans. Shortly upon meeting each other, they decide to do what they can to liberate Dana from Renan rule, and what follows is a classic tale of rebellion, or so it seems. With the release of Tales of Arise, released to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series, the Tales game seems to be taking a step forward. Graphically speaking, Tales of Arise represents a new generation, with a combination of 3D models and cel shading, making use of the Unreal Engine 4 to create one of the most visually stunning games in the series. Combat has a lot of heft to it, with the sword-wielding lead protagonist Alphen swinging his sword with what feels like a lot of bite to his attacks. Shortly into the story, he'll receive the Blazing Sword, a secondary weapon that he uses to deliver a fire-infused special attack combo finisher, at the cost of his own HP, sacrificing more of it to deliver more powerful attacks, making him a classic glass cannon. Thank God the other lead protagonist, Shion, is a gun-wielding spellslinger who dabbles in healing magic, keeping her distance from enemies with well-placed shots and spells. Combat is definitely where this game shines, and as the other members of the party joins and brings their own tools to the table, you'll find yourself switching between them to get a hang of how they play, using their arts and cherry-picking the best combos for your playstyle. The story itself is fascinating, though it's a bit of a slow start in the early going. It feels like it takes a while for you to fully control your characters the way you want to, which can feel a bit frustrating for those who want to leap into battle and the meat of the story right away. Tales of Arise was delayed a few times in its development cycle, first to make it compatible with the 9th generation of consoles, and then by the pandemic. But these delays resulted in a very full narrative experience that does not shy from taking its time to tell a story, and it's a hell of a story. While some of the beats might feel familiar to people savvy to the tropes of rebellion stories, the characters themselves bring a lot of nuance to it. Xion is at first pretty much like your standard Ice Queen, but is justified by her curse of thorns preventing her from literally getting close to anyone. Alphen, on the other hand, might just be a contender for the nicest guy in the Tales series, and in RPGs as a whole, but he'll fight ferociously against Ren and Rule in the name of rebellion. As stated, the Tales games tend to deconstruct a lot, but the twists in Arise tend to come near the end of the game, which, as hinted in the early game story, takes a swing away from fantasy into sci-fi, only to swing it right back to fantasy again. Saying anything more than that would be spoilers, I'm afraid. You'll have to see it for yourself. Now, as much as I love this game, it's not without a few grievances. The reworking of skits in this game removes the old talking heads aspect of prior titles, but replaces it with a comic book style, which, while cool, seems static and feels like more of a lateral move than an upgrade. I still enjoyed them, but more for their content than for their presentation. They do lose their dynamism when you realize that they are still just talking heads. The solution would be to turn these skits into actual cutscenes. But considering how many there are in Arise alone, 300, that might just not be feasible. Battles are fun and dynamic. But a personal grievance of mine is how, when using your arts, your characters are basically calling out every single attack. Every single one. You're fine if you're using your basic attack, but if you start stringing together your arts in a combo, prepare to have them call out their arts constantly. It's one thing if it's a mage in your party performing an incantation. That's fine. But when you're a swordsman and you're constantly yelling out the names of your attacks in rapid succession, it becomes more than a little wearying. As such, the combat can feel very chatty when it shouldn't be, and the option to toggle that little aspect on and off would have been appreciated. All things considered though, these are tiny issues in what is definitely my favorite game in the Tales series so far, and everything from the characters to the story to battles to the side quests made this game very much worth the wait. Tales of Arise is definitely one of the best games of 2021, and easily the best JRPG experience of the year.